My name is Nanami Naursawa, and I will be attending Cal Poly SLO this fall as a freshman as a liberal studies major, and I will be presenting my summer tutor project. I will be a liberal studies major in hopes to become an elementary school teacher. I decided to use this summer to enhance my teaching skills, and I had experience for in-person tutoring, but not much virtually, and I decided to provide free tutoring to elementary school students during these hard times of COVID-19. My goals from this project were to meet each student's need on either catching up on work or provide further enrichment in math. I hope to obtain new skills in order to teach effectively virtually. I planned on having 5 to 10 lessons, 30 minutes to an hour with each student, and I focused on the areas of growth mindset, number sense, and visual math. After this project, I hope to pursue a tutoring job in the future. My first aspect I focused on was growth mindset. I wanted to promote the fact that everyone can do math, even though some students have negativity around how math is only for specific types of people. Asking questions like what method did I use and how are other ways I can solve this problem can further develop their understanding in math. And also promoting the positive of making mistakes is important because there's always negativity around that. Developing correlations with real life situations is important to understand how important math is outside of school settings. In my lessons, I incorporated classroom-like scenarios like learning how to teach another person, and if someone else made a mistake, what will you tell them, and learn how to give consistent encouragement to others, as well as me giving consistent encouragement to them. I also found different ways to make math fun rather than just memorizing things. And for our last lesson, I gave similar problems from the first so they can see themselves how much they have grown. Next, number sense is knowing number quantities, either how one number is greater than less than another number, rather than just memorizing. And this connects to having more confidence in numbers. In a research, it states that 1 in 5 adults lack math knowledge of a middle schooler because they don't build a solid foundation from a young age. Students who are weaker in this area have a harder time in other aspects of school. In my lessons, I asked them to use their fingers to do their math and show them different ways when they're doing calculations. And I also asked to solve mentally rather than just doing the way they were learned in class so they can be more creative on different problems. I also asked how they got the problem to make sure they're not just guessing. And estimating is also important. Lastly, visual math will strengthen the connections between the brain and visual pathways when you use visual math in math lessons. When we do math, there are 5 networks and 2 of them are visual. This will increase the opportunity in their understanding in their math. In a behavioral and neuroscience research, it states that students with better finger perception were predicted to have better scores. In my lessons, I asked them to write down shapes and numbers and drawing objects such as drawing 10 circles and crossing out 5 so they can see how subtraction works on their paper. And I utilized the whiteboard feature on Zoom when we were doing fractions or graphs. Here are my students. I tutored 7 students this summer, and my students ranged from having to attend summer school because they were behind from their classmates to being more advanced in math, but they did not have much interest in the subject. Here are some of my lesson plans I had for them. So for example, in the upper left image, this was another way to approach multiplication problems rather than just memorizing. They can see like a different way to solve them. And these shapes were important so they can see real life examples. And I also asked them to find different objects around the house so they don't just sit down in one place during our lesson. This clock exercise was also important because many students were so used to looking at digital clocks and they kind of struggled in how to read a clock. So we did some exercises like that. And money problem were also important because it connects with real life examples, and we did some fun games about shopping and how many coins you need to buy a certain object. And then we also did some graphs and fractions, which increases their number sense and visual math. And lastly, this last example is a decimal problem where you can do both subtraction and addition when we're filling in the blanks. Some struggles I had were that some students were distracted from their surrounding of their home and used the whiteboard feature when we were not using it. One student ran away from the computer after giving them a difficult problem because they were frustrated and being stuck on a problem and giving up easily and saying, I don't know, or I can't do that frequently. So, some solutions I came up with this is I had a discussion with a kindergarten teacher and she suggested that I use some songs or visuals so it can be more fun. And I provided different ways to solve the problems so they're not fixated on one method. And we made up our own problems so they can further understand the concept and have a little bit more fun. And I had some scenarios to describe that it is good to make mistakes. So this is an example of one of the slides I gave them. So we kind of talked back and forth about how you can help another person in a classroom when they are struggling. I also gave breaks by doing some math games as well. Towards one of our last lessons, I asked the parents to fill out a Google form survey with some positives and feedbacks. Some positives I received were that they were less intimidated on harder problems and they increased their social interactions with these one-to-one tutoring, and they're excited when they realized they were able to solve the problem rather than just giving up easily in the beginning. And they showed off their skills around the house and they taught other family members problems we did during our lessons, and they increased their patience with math. Some feedback I received were that the parents wanted more material and understand how they are taught at school, because at some schools they don't teach addition and subtraction in a traditional way. So I had some struggles going about that. So we had some communication and talked to the parents beforehand about lesson that we're going to do, and set goals in the beginning of each lesson so they have a heads up of what we're going to do that day, and maybe hold up physical objects like apples to show fractions for visual learners. For my takeaways, I wanted to continue to create a comfortable environment for my future students so they feel safe to ask any questions and make mistakes. I want to continue to promote that there are many ways students can approach problems and not just one. I was able to develop new methods on this different approach of tutoring, and it motivated me to establish even better lessons in the future. Thank you.